thought the Dutton family's story reached its most emotional chapter in 1923, you may want to think again. The next generation could be heading toward the darkest era in Yellowstone history. A world at war, a divided Dutton family, new enemies threatening everything Spencer fought to protect, and one young heir who may be forced to carry the future of the ranch before he's ready. Although Paramount hasn't revealed everything about Yellowstone 1944 yet, there are already plenty of clues pointing toward where this incredible story could go next. Could Spencer Dutton still be protecting the ranch? Will John Dutton II finally step into the role that changes the family's future forever? And could World War II become the biggest challenge the Yellowstone universe has ever explored? Let's take a closer look at everything we know so far and the biggest possibilities for Yellowstone 1944. By the time the story reaches 1944, the Yellowstone Ranch could look very different from the one fans last saw in 1923. More than 20 years would have passed, and during that time an entire generation would have grown up. The children who were only babies at the end of 1923 could now be adults facing responsibilities that none of them ever expected. The world around them would also be changing rapidly. America would be deeply involved in World War II, and that alone could completely transform life on the ranch. One of the biggest questions every fan is asking is what Spencer Dutton's life might look like after losing Alex. The ending of 1923 left viewers heartbroken as Alex finally reached Montana, only to pass away shortly after giving birth to John Dutton II. Spencer achieved his dream of bringing her home, but he lost the person he loved most at the very moment they were supposed to begin their future together. That tragedy could shape every decision he makes for the rest of his life. If Yellowstone 1944 continues this story, we could see an older Spencer who has devoted nearly every part of his life to protecting the ranch. Rather than chasing adventure across Africa or traveling the world as he once did, his entire focus may now be keeping his family's legacy alive. Years of responsibility, loss, and sacrifice may have turned him into an even stronger leader, but perhaps also a quieter and more distant man. Those emotional scars could still be visible decades later. Another major question is how John Dutton II may have grown up. Throughout the Yellowstone timeline, every generation of Duttons has faced impossible expectations. John could be no different. Growing up without his mother and under the shadow of Spencer's legendary reputation may have placed enormous pressure on him. Instead of enjoying a peaceful childhood, he may have spent years learning how to defend the ranch, manage cattle, negotiate with powerful businessmen, and prepare for threats that never truly disappear. The ranch itself may also be facing new challenges. While previous generations fought over land ownership and survival, the 1940s introduced entirely different problems. The American economy was changing. New industries continued expanding across the West. Roads, railways, government projects, and commercial development could all place fresh pressure on ranch owners. The Dutton family may once again find themselves fighting powerful outsiders who see Yellowstone as valuable land rather than a family legacy. At the same time, life on the ranch could become even more difficult because of the war. Many experienced ranch workers might leave to join the military, creating serious labor shortages. Equipment, supplies, and livestock could become harder to maintain. Every decision Spencer makes may carry greater consequences than ever before. Protecting Yellowstone would no longer depend only on defending it from enemies with guns. It could also require surviving economic hardship, maintaining the ranch with fewer people, and keeping the family united during one of the most uncertain periods in American history. Another possibility that makes this period especially exciting is the emotional relationship between Spencer and his son. Spencer never had the opportunity to build a normal family life with Alex. Because of that, he may struggle to express his emotions even toward John. Their relationship could become respectful but distant, with both men carrying pain they rarely speak about. That emotional distance could create some of the strongest character moments in the entire series, especially if John begins questioning whether he can ever truly live up to the Dutton name. Of course, Taylor Sheridan has always balanced family drama with larger historical events, and 1944 offers one of the richest periods in American history to explore. Instead of focusing only on action, the series could examine how ordinary families survive extraordinary times. Every member of the Dutton family may be forced to choose between personal happiness and duty. Some could remain in Montana protecting the ranch, while others may feel obligated to serve overseas. One thing seems almost certain. If Yellowstone 1944 becomes the next chapter in the Yellowstone saga, the emotional heart of the story will likely remain the same. It won't simply be about preserving land, it will be about preserving family, tradition, and the sacrifices made by every generation before them. Spencer fought to save Yellowstone in 1923. Now, the next generation may have to prove they are worthy of everything he sacrificed to protect. By 1944, the biggest threat to the Dutton family may not come from neighboring ranches or greedy businessmen. Instead, it could come from a war taking place thousands of miles away. World War II changed the lives of millions of families, and if Yellowstone 1944 follows history closely, it would be almost impossible for the Duttons to escape its impact. At this point in the timeline, John Dutton II would likely be old enough to serve in the military. Like many young men of his generation, he could feel a strong sense of duty to protect his country. But that decision would come at a heavy cost. Leaving the Yellowstone Ranch during one of the most difficult periods in its history could put everything Spencer spent years protecting at risk. Imagine Spencer standing at the ranch, watching his son leave for war. After losing Alex decades earlier, this could become one of the most painful moments of his life. He already knows what it feels like to lose the person he loves most. Now he may face the terrifying possibility of losing his only son as well. That emotional weight alone could make some of the strongest scenes in the entire Yellowstone universe. If John does join the war, the battlefield may completely change him. Young men who returned home after World War II were often very different from the people who left. They carried experiences that few others could understand. If John survives, he may come back stronger, more disciplined, and more determined than ever before. But he may also carry emotional scars that stay with him for the rest of his life. The war could also create difficult choices for the ranch. With so many workers serving overseas, Spencer may struggle to keep Yellowstone running. Every season would become a fight for survival. Finding enough people to care for the cattle, repair fences, and protect the land could become nearly impossible. Financial pressure might grow, while outside investors see an opportunity to buy struggling ranches across Montana. That could introduce a completely new kind of enemy. Instead of using violence, powerful businessmen may use money, contracts, and legal battles to take control of valuable land. Spencer has spent years defeating enemies through courage and determination, but this time the fight could be far more complicated. Winning with a rifle is one thing. Winning in courtrooms and business negotiations is something entirely different. Meanwhile, John may face another challenge overseas. Throughout the Yellowstone franchise, loyalty has always been one of the family's strongest values. During the war, that loyalty could be tested in ways no one expects. He may be forced to make impossible decisions to protect his fellow soldiers. Those moments could shape the kind of leader he eventually becomes when he returns home. Another interesting possibility is that the series could explore how the war changes America itself. Technology was advancing rapidly during the 1940s. Transportation improved, cities expanded, industries grew stronger. Even if the Dutton family manages to protect the ranch from immediate danger, the modern world may slowly begin closing in around them. The wide-open West that Spencer once knew may start disappearing, replaced by a future that values development more than tradition. Family relationships could also become more complicated during this period. Long separations often create misunderstandings and emotional distance. Letters may be delayed for months. News from the battlefield could arrive slowly, leaving loved ones waiting in fear every single day. Every knock on the ranch door might bring either hope or devastating news. Spencer himself may struggle with these changes. He has always been a man of action. Throughout 1923, he solved problems by facing them directly. But protecting his son during a global war is something even Spencer cannot control. For perhaps the first time in his life, he may be forced to simply wait and hope. The emotional pressure on the family could become overwhelming. Karen and Jacob always believed that every generation of Duttons had a responsibility to protect Yellowstone. Spencer carried that responsibility after them. Now the question becomes whether John is truly ready to carry it after Spencer. The answer may determine not only the future of the ranch, but also the future of the entire Dutton family. If Taylor Sheridan chooses to explore these themes, Yellowstone 1944 could become much more than another Western drama. It could tell the story of a family trying to survive one of the darkest periods in modern history while holding on to the values that have defined them for generations. And if history teaches us anything, it's that wars don't end when the fighting stops. Their consequences continue for years. If John returns to Montana, the man who steps off that train may be completely different from the young man who left. That transformation could become the foundation for everything that happens next in the Yellowstone timeline. Even if the war eventually comes to an end, the Dutton family's biggest battle may still be waiting back home. Throughout the entire Yellowstone timeline, every generation has faced the same question: who is truly worthy of carrying the family legacy? That question could become the emotional center of Yellowstone 1944. By this point, Spencer Dutton would likely have spent decades protecting the Yellowstone Ranch. He fought dangerous enemies, endured heartbreaking personal loss, and dedicated his life to preserving the land for future generations. But no matter how strong one man is, there eventually comes a time when leadership must be passed on. The biggest question is whether John Dutton II is truly ready for that responsibility. Growing up on the Yellowstone Ranch would never have been easy. Unlike most young men, John would have been raised with the constant reminder that every decision affects not only his family, but also generations yet to come. The ranch is more than land. It represents the Dutton name, their history, and every sacrifice made before him. That kind of responsibility could shape John into a determined and capable leader. At the same time, it could also place enormous pressure on him. Living in the shadow of Spencer's reputation may not be easy. Everyone around him might compare his decisions to those of his father, making it difficult for him to prove himself on his own. If the series explores this relationship, we could witness one of the strongest father and son stories in the Yellowstone universe. Spencer may believe he is preparing John for leadership, while John may feel that nothing he does is ever enough. Those emotional conflicts often become much more powerful than physical battles. Another possibility is that not everyone in the family agrees about Yellowstone's future. Every generation of Duttons has faced disagreements over how the ranch should be managed. Some believe in protecting tradition at any cost, while others understand that change is sometimes necessary for survival. By 1944, Montana itself could be changing rapidly. Roads continue expanding. Businesses are becoming larger. Wealthy investors may start looking toward ranch land as valuable property rather than family heritage. John could find himself facing a difficult choice. Should he continue fighting every outside influence exactly as Spencer always did? Or should he find new ways to protect the ranch in a changing world? That difference in thinking alone could create major tension between father and son. At the same time, Spencer may struggle with something even more personal. Losing Alex changed him forever. Even after all these years, those memories may still influence every decision he makes. Instead of encouraging John to build his own future, Spencer may become overly protective because he knows how quickly life can change. John, however, may want to prove that he can protect Yellowstone without constantly relying on his father's guidance. That desire for independence could lead him to make risky decisions, some successful, others with serious consequences. Outside the family, new rivals may also begin emerging. Unlike Banner Creighton or Donald Whitfield, these enemies might not rely on violence alone. They could arrive wearing expensive suits instead of cowboy hats, carrying legal documents instead of rifles. Their goal would remain the same: gain control of Yellowstone. That kind of conflict could make the story feel fresh, while staying true to everything fans love about the Yellowstone franchise. Instead of fighting only on horseback, the Duttons may also have to fight through business deals, political influence, and legal battles. One interesting possibility is that these new enemies underestimate the Dutton family. They may believe the older generation has become weaker with age, and that the younger generation lacks experience. But that mistake could prove costly. John would have spent his entire life learning from Spencer, one of the toughest men the Yellowstone universe has ever introduced. Even if he approaches problems differently, he would still carry the same determination that has defined every Dutton before him. The ranch itself may also continue serving as the emotional heart of the story. Every fence, every pasture, and every mountain carries memories of previous generations. Spencer understands that better than anyone. John may eventually realize that protecting Yellowstone isn't just about saving land. It's about protecting the family's identity. That realization could become the moment when Spencer finally sees his son, not as a boy who needs guidance, but as the man capable of leading the family into the future. Of course, no Yellowstone story would be complete without unexpected twists. Just when it seems the Duttons have overcome one challenge, another usually appears. New alliances may form, old secrets could resurface, long-forgotten rivalries might return when no one expects them. If Taylor Sheridan decides to continue the family saga in this era, the emotional stakes could be higher than ever. Spencer may slowly recognize that his greatest achievement was never defeating his enemies. It was preparing the next generation to continue protecting everything the Dutton family stands for. And if John truly earns his father's trust, Yellowstone 1944 could become the bridge connecting the unforgettable story of 1923 to the generations that follow. One of the biggest questions surrounding Yellowstone 1944 isn't just what story it could tell, it's who might return to bring that story to life. While Paramount hasn't officially announced a cast for the series, fans have been sharing plenty of theories about which familiar faces could appear if this next chapter moves forward. At the center of those discussions is Spencer Dutton. After becoming one of the most popular characters in the entire Yellowstone franchise, many viewers hope his story isn't over yet. If the timeline reaches 1944, Spencer would be much older, but he could still play a major role in protecting the Yellowstone Ranch and guiding the next generation. Whether his role is large or small, it would be difficult to imagine this chapter without him, especially considering how important he became at the end of 1923. The next major focus would almost certainly be John Dutton II. Although audiences only briefly met him as a newborn, 1944 could finally explore his journey as an adult. If the story follows his rise within the family, viewers may witness how he grows from a young man carrying impossible expectations into the leader who helps shape the future of the Dutton legacy. Another character many fans continue talking about is Elizabeth. Her heartbreaking journey in 1923 left plenty of unanswered questions. After losing Jack Dutton, she chose to leave Montana and return to Boston. That decision closed one chapter of her life, but it didn't necessarily end her connection to the Dutton family. Because of that, some viewers wonder if 1944 could reveal what became of her years later. Even if she never permanently returns to the ranch, a reunion between Elizabeth and the remaining members of the Dutton family could become one of the series' most emotional moments. Seeing familiar faces reconnect after decades apart would remind audiences just how much time has passed and how much each character has endured. Another storyline that could continue involves Tiana Rainwater. Her journey in 1923 was one of the most powerful stories in the series, highlighting survival, resilience, and hope during incredibly difficult circumstances. If 1944 revisits her life years later, it could show how her experiences shaped future generations and continue the broader history of the Yellowstone universe from another perspective. At the same time, the new generation would likely introduce several completely original characters. Friends, rivals, military companions, ranch hands, government officials, and ambitious businessmen could all become important parts of the story. Every Yellowstone series has expanded its world by introducing unforgettable new personalities, and 1944 would likely continue that tradition. One possibility is that John Dutton II forms close friendships during the war that later influenced life back in Montana. Some of those relationships could become valuable alliances, while others might eventually develop into dangerous rivalries. Throughout Taylor Sheridan's stories, loyalty often changes over time, and even trusted allies sometimes find themselves standing on opposite sides.